Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode infinity of the Disgruntled Geeks podcast.
Episode Infinity.
Yeah, because an 8 sideways is infinity.
Oh God, I thought you meant I had to do this forever.
Yes, well, you do actually.
No,
Like,
no. Okay, no.
like this is literally the rest of your life. Like every week, this is where you're gonna be.
You think they still sell rope at this hour?
I'm sure you can go to the Walgreens that's on the street corner of every city and find some rope.
That's true.
So,
All right.
but yes, this is actually episode 8 of the Disgruntled Geeks podcast. The
Yes,
most
it is.
the most honest, critical, and sometimes cynical podcast you will ever hear.
Yep.
And before we go into anything, I want to say a few words
Oh, do you?
about Tupelo sports cards.
Oh, I thought
So-
you just meant in general.
Well, yeah. I was gonna actually list off a few words, just random words, and my mind went blank. Out of all of the 20,000 something words I probably know, I couldn't think of any.
I mean, you could have also just gone off camera, grabbed a dictionary, and just flipped through the pages, and it fit with the skit, I think.
Well, have a dictionary
I
that goes with me everywhere.
Class than that.
A phone. Well,
That's the millennial thing.
me in class, huh?
Oh
But
yeah, this was you dabbing last week. I remember this.
right.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking.
So the Disgruntled Geeks podcast is proudly sponsored by Tupelo Sports Cards.
Yep.
Tupelo Sports Cards is your location for TCGs, hobby games, board games, miniatures, and sports memorabilia in North Mississippi. So if you're ever in the Tupelo area, stop over, look for Anthony in there. He's a super nice guy. He'll take care of you.
He will.
So Ben,
Yo.
well, I didn't even introduce us. Wow.
No, you did not. You just assume they know us.
Yes. Well, for those that don't know us, I am your host, Ronnie McNutt.
Quick,
And-
introduce us before they leave.
Yes, and this is your other host, Ben.
Hi.
He's the other voice you've been hearing.
Yes,
And
that's right.
for those of our regulars, you notice it's just me and Ben this week.
Yeah,
So
we're doing duo this week.
yeah, we just occasionally we just want to make sure you hear just our voices. Like we don't want to share with somebody else every once in a
Yeah.
while.
Yes, it has nothing to do with the fact that we couldn't find any homeless people to drag in.
Right? Or is that saying that all of our previous guests were homeless?
Only at least 2 of them.
Only. Oh wow.
Maybe 1. I don't know.
It's funny that I'm automatically like I know which 2 you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like my mind just automatically went there. So instead of just talking about us and the things that are going on in the lives of our guests, let's talk a little bit about what. Oh, wow, it's kind of funny. I said instead of talking about us, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing this week, Ben?
Yeah.
Let's talk more about us.
Yeah, instead of okay, well, this week it's been the usual plus the fun real life bonus of not trying to die at work because we've had some crazy days there. For the safety of my workplace, I won't go into detail about what I do, but it's been crazy there. And then today, I actually have a startling announcement, which is I will be playing in an X-Wing Store Championship this weekend.
But I thought you were all about Legion.
No, not really. I mean, X-Wing was what I was in before. That was my jam originally. It still is. But it was just kind of last minute. We're carpooling down to go play in a store championship. You want to come with?
Right.
Sure.
Which I knew you were kind of on the I'm waiting till 2.0 before I play a whole lot more.
And I still see, because I'm trying to put a list together for that because it's like, oh, I'm playing a store championship. What should I play? And yeah, it's sort of like I just look through List Juggler and other places and I think, oh, all the reasons why I'm waiting for 2.0.
Yeah, just play TIE Fighter Swarm.
I do have enough TIE fighters for that, yeah.
Yeah,
And plus, it's in the same vein as sending stormtroopers to their death, so I may do that.
right.
You'll at least be half right, because odds are I'll be flying Empire, because I just can't stomach flying Rebels. Because
Right.
everybody plays them.
Well, the Empire did nothing wrong.
No, it didn't.
Think
our mind.
I mean, really, this seems like a good discussion we can have on this podcast. Think about it. The Empire came into existence. Yeah, okay, maybe Sidious, did kind of work things out politically to make it happen, but he came to power under vote. Like they voted him to be emperor, and then all of a sudden these rebels show up out of nowhere and blow up this multi-trillion-dollar thing that they had developed.
Yep.
Like, that's a terrorist attack.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you expect them to do? Of course they're going to try to eradicate the rebels.
Yep. The Death Star was never meant to be built as a weapon. It was simply an advanced mining facility.
Yeah, and then it was one of those things where like the whole thing with Princess Leia's planet, like she was a terrorist that had the plans that they knew you're going to destroy it. It's like, oh wow, no, can't go into this. I was about to go to politics.
Don't you do it. Do
okay, putting
it.
the brakes on that one. Putting the brakes on that one. But yeah, Empire.
Fictional politics is fine. Real life politics is banned. That's all there is to it.
Right. Yeah. So Empire did nothing wrong. But have you heard about the big thing that happened on Reddit on Thanos did nothing wrong?
No.
With that subreddit. Oh man, this was great. So all the Marvel fans out there are gonna love this. So there is a Reddit called Thanos Did Nothing Wrong, and this has been a couple of weeks ago that this happened. I was watching as it was going on and just never had the opportunity to talk about it here.
You were a spectator.
It was I was in on it. It was everybody in the Reddit was in on it, and you'll understand what I say here in a second. But they and they actually streamed it here on Twitch. It was great. But somebody posted that it would be great if the moderators would ban half the people on the subreddit. And then all of a sudden, like the moderators were like, well, we really can't do that because there's been other things like that have happened on Reddit where Reddit has stepped in and said, no, you can't do this because it bogs down the servers. They actually got permission from Reddit admin to run a bot to ban half the users. So they set out a date that was 6 days later, and each day represented them getting a different Infinity Stone.
Okay.
And so they had a theme for each day. And the Reddit quickly, once people figured out this was going on, the Reddit became the largest Marvel subreddit on Reddit. And then on top of that, it was like in the top 10 subreddits in Reddit just like overnight. And so I was actually one of the people that was banned. So
you're really not here right now.
Yeah, I was snapped out of existence. But it was great. They streamed it, and you could see as the bot was banning people, like it just would do their names. It was a really quick process, but it still took because they had like 700,000 people on the subreddit.
Yep.
And so it still took like 4 hours, even though the bot was going through things real quickly.
If you're doing 700,000, that's still 350,000 to go through.
Exactly. And so and all of us that were banned, on Reddit, you can always stay on a Reddit even though you're banned on a subreddit. But they asked everybody that was banned to politely leave. So I obliged and left the subreddit because I no longer exist on Thanos Did Nothing Wrong.
No, it's true. Yeah, it's all gone.
But it was absolutely some of the most fun ever to be had on Reddit. So if you didn't get to experience it, I would definitely recommend looking it up. It was so fun just to experience it.
Yeah,
you said
there's a Twitch of it, right?
Yes, which is
on Twitch?
Which really all the Twitch is just them showing, like the bot just showing what it's doing as it's going through banning people. So it's not a really interesting stream, but it's like if you don't believe me, there's video evidence on Twitch.
Yeah, and I mean in the same vein, rewatching Twitch plays Pokemon is not interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
The highlights.
You have to live it for it to be fun.
Yes, that's true.
But yeah, so that was really fun. As far as what I've actually got going on this week, this week I have finally taken the plunge on a game that I have been very, very wary about getting, and that game is Raft.
I saw that actually on the Discord that you were playing it.
Right, and so for those that don't know what Raft is a survival game in the same vein as like Minecraft, 7 Days to Die, Subnautica.
It actually kind of plays like the Sky Island mode in Minecraft.
Yeah, exactly. You start on like a little 2x2 raft, and you've got stuff that looks like stuff from a shipwreck, kind of floating around, and you've got a hook that you've got to use to get it, which is how you get your materials.
You scorpion it to you.
Exactly. And you're slowly trying to build your raft, and there's a shark that every so often will take a bite out of your raft.
Yeah.
So it kind of creates you've got to actually work on expanding your raft.
There's a sense of urgency.
Exactly. And so I took the plunge. I've been playing it for a few hours. I'm absolutely enjoying it. It's actually really fun. For those that look at the reviews on Steam, yes, a lot of the reviews are correct. It does take. There's a lot of management of your thirst and your hunger in the game, more
Right.
than I haven't seen in other games. But honestly, this game would be way too easy if that wasn't in there.
Yeah.
This game is meant to be one of those survival games where, like you said, with a sense of urgency, that you constantly have a sense of urgency. Okay, I've got to be getting water. I've got to be getting food. I've got to make sure that my raft keeps expanding so this shark doesn't, destroy my raft.
Right.
And then, you know, you start to see the progression of like, okay, this is getting easier. This is getting easier. And then as it gets easier and you start building up into things that make managing those things easier, then's when you really get to get into the fun stuff like building a sail and starting to explore islands and stuff like that. But that's one of the things that, I don't know what the people that are reviewing it on Steam want. That's the progression of a survival game.
Yeah, it is.
It's like, yes, it is supposed to be hard starting out,
Well,
like,
and I do wonder what they expect when you take a big chunk out of the gameplay, like taking away the hunger and the thirst. It's like, okay, I mean, I understand wanting a sort of sandbox mode where you can build wherever you want,
right.
but to have a mode that's in between sandbox and survival where you don't have hunger and thirst, I just don't see the appeal in like what's the fun of playing that? Because if I'm
Right.
gonna play to build, I'll go to sandbox. If I'm gonna play the game, I'll go to survival. Because it seems like the hunger and thirst is weaved into this is the experience they want you to play.
Exactly. And it's for me is it's like looking at Minecraft. Like your first night in Minecraft is rough.
It's not great.
Especially as a new player when the first time you ever play it, because you just don't know what's coming. And I feel like Raft has that same sense because I've actually already done a couple of worlds because I had to restart because I messed up. And
that's fine.
And I found the second time much easier because I already knew like the general path for the first day or so. And so it's like I feel like those people played it the first time and they're like, man, at the beginning of the game, like that hunger and thirst really just ate me up. And it's like, yeah, because you didn't know how to play.
If you play a new survival game and you're just brand new to it, don't have any experience with it, and you don't find yourself restarting a few times, then you're a witch who is lying to the public.
Exactly.
Because I mean, like I played the other water game you mentioned, Subnautica, and I definitely had to restart a couple times.
Right, because you just don't know the path the first time you play, and so you've got to discover that path, and that's part of it.
My path was hilariously tragic for Subnautica.
Mine too.
I'll tell this story if nobody has a problem with it.
Oh, nobody has a problem.
I didn't think so. So, like, I did my first playthrough, and I'm managing the hunger and thirst Subnautica, which I don't think it's in Subnautica. I don't think it's as serious as it is in Raft, but I'm getting to the point where like I'm becoming dehydrated. So I'm looking up, and bear in mind, I had no idea that the bladderfish could give you fresh water. So I'm like, okay, what do I need to filter water? And it's like I need bleach and salt, and I think maybe that's it. Maybe a couple other things because you put it in the future 3D printer, and that somehow makes water.
Right.
Don't actually do that at home, kids. So I got the bleach, no problem, because it's mixing coral and something else, but I don't have salt. And I'm trying to look for salt. I can't find salt. I'm on a planet that is salt water, and I can't find salt.
Or are you getting salty about not being able to find salt?
I was actually being panicked more than anything else, because I was just, like, slowly dying. And it's just like, I had to quit out, because it's like, no, I'm just going to drop dead in a second. Why can't I find salt on this ocean planet?
That's actually what happened to me on Raft. Is like I died of thirst, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not losing. I'll just start over instead of continuing on because my raft was like 2 blocks long at that point because the shark had already got it.
Yeah, it just goes by and like TikTok Clarice and takes another piece.
So another thing that I did this week is I went and watched the new summer blockbuster movie Skyscraper.
Oh, Dwayne Johnson's new entry?
Yeah, and let me tell you, okay, this is, for those that wonder sometimes where the Disgruntled, you're about to get the Disgruntled.
Okay, this ought to be good.
Yeah, it was almost, not quite, but almost as bad as a Peter Jackson movie.
Wow.
It was terrible. I'm sitting here in the theater, and the guy who's sitting next to me starts yawning, and I just look over at him, and I'm like, my thoughts exactly.
You kind of just do this, just like this bump, like, yeah, I'm with you, man.
It was like it had everything that a good action movie needed to have,
Right.
except for a good script.
Oh.
Like, you could tell, like, there was an attempt here, but
They
everything,
really tried.
yeah, everything just fell short. It was like so cliche. Like, there's this point where, you know, minor spoilers for like one of the worst movies of the summer here.
Oh no!
But-
Avert your ears for skyscraper spoilers, ladies and gentlemen.
But there's a point where like The Rock is like, first thing he's got a fake leg. Because, like,
Right.
at the very beginning, you see him, you know, be in this situation where a bomb goes off and it destroys one of his legs.
I just assume this is a sequel to Rampage, and one of the animals bit his leg off.
There you go. But, so, he's up on this crane, and the fire in the skyscraper's already started. So he's above the fire line trying to jump in. And he uses this hook to connect to the building. So it's like he's going to climb across the rope. But then the hook comes out. So now there's like this 100-foot difference between where the crane is and where the opening in the building is.
Right.
And he like goes to run across and jumps. And I'm like, I'm expecting maybe something interesting and different.
Yeah.
But you know, it was just the same old action, like, and then he makes it and like doesn't fully make it. He doesn't land on the floor. Instead, you know, he it's like his upper body catches on, and then there's this moment where like they act like he's gonna fall, but then he catches himself with his other hand, and it's like, how cliche? How
That's
cliche
really
could a
funny
movie be?
That's really funny because they had that shot of him making the jump as like their promotional work whenever this movie was first announced.
Right.
And there was like the Facebook image going around where it's like, well, look, I did the math in every single possible angle. He just goes splat every time.
Right.
Like, this just doesn't happen.
And then like, and there's like all these times where, you know, he uses duct tape through the film.
Hey, that's great.
And then at the very end, like they're figuring out this plan to take on the big bad guy at the end. And then he just looks at the guy and he's like, "You got any duct tape?"
All right.
I'm like, wow.
So I have two questions. One is directly involved in this movie. The second question is more about Dwayne Johnson himself. First of all, are we certain? Can we rule out the fact that this movie may in fact be sponsored by duct tape?
It probably was. Somebody had to pay for them to mention duct tape as often as they
like
did.
The most elaborate commercial for duct tape. A product that, bear in mind, does not need a commercial to sell itself.
Right.
Like, everybody loves duct tape.
But here's the thing. Here's the funny part about it.
Okay.
He looks at him and he goes, "Do you have any duct tape?" Right? And then all of a sudden, the big plan with duct tape is he's got the dude's hands duct taped together. Like, you know,
Well,
and I do want to mention we've got some comments in the chat right now. Somebody said The Rock is one of the greatest and most inspirational actors ever. What have you ever done, huh? Okay, here's the thing, Return of the Mac. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter what I've done.
No.
It doesn't. A bad movie's a bad movie.
Yeah.
I don't have to have been in a good movie to be able to recognize that a movie's bad.
Also,
it's
I
like-
hate to break this to you, The Rock does not need defenders. Small-time curmudgeons like us aren't going to reduce him to tears.
Yeah.
And he cares even less about you. Sorry.
Right. It's just one of those things where, like, I respect The Rock. I love The Rock. I've been following The Rock since the 90s when he was in wrestling. He's a very talented dude, but this script was bad. This movie was bad. And it's not going to hurt his legacy at all either.
No.
I mean, this is the frickin' Rock.
Yeah. He can be in every bad movie he wants to be.
It's like,
We'll still pay to get him because he's The Rock.
yeah. I mean, and that's the whole thing. Is this movie would not have? I think whoever made this movie knew, based on the script, that this movie wouldn't make money without somebody like The Rock playing the lead character.
I mean, odds are he probably just has fun being in movies and just doesn't really care what he's in.
You know, and that's okay. I mean, you look at some of the movies that
Yeah, it's a
Arnold
great way to
Schwartz
look
is,
at it.
you know, look at like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Bruce Willis. Like, they've been in some terrible, terrible movies themselves. But if they're having fun with it and they're making money, who cares? Or they don't, at least. But I'm good. At the end of the day, if I go to a movie and I feel like I wasted $10, I'm going to say I felt like I wasted $10, and I definitely wasted $10 seeing this movie.
Oh, well. You got plenty more $10 to waste.
Oh, yeah. So, but, I mean, just, yeah. Overall, like, if you have not seen this movie, don't.
You can probably pass.
Don't. So, okay, so we're going to have to ban somebody now.
Oh, that's always fun. So let's see. What else have we got? Well, we could also go into another big news story that's come out.
What's that?
You know who we could finally talk about after all these years? Well, I don't know how many years.
Yeah, it's been a few years.
It's been a few years, yeah, but I'm guessing you know who we can finally talk about now.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
No, we can still talk about him.
Chris Benoit.
Who?
Oh, not him. Okay.
No. It was someone else. I hadn't said the name in so long. Maybe you have to go on the internet to look it up. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Hulk Hogan. Yeah, because he was reinstated into WWE's Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Yep, that's, it's such a hard topic to talk about because it's such a sensitive issue.
It really is, and it kind of gets close to the only rule we really have, which is real life politics is banned.
Right.
It starts it. But,
well, I will go ahead. I'm gonna put this out here,
okay.
and that way it's just said. It's like, look, nobody from this podcast is going to defend anything, and I'm not going to say what he said. I'm not going to talk about specifics behind it. But nobody. Yeah, go ahead.
If you really need to know what he said, there's transcripts of it. But I mean, it is just awful stuff.
Right.
I would not.
And nobody on this podcast. Me and Ben have talked about it extensively through the last few years. Nobody on this podcast or affiliated with us would ever defend what he said.
No.
But I am going to say this: what he said does not change the greatness that he had in the ring. It does not change the way that he affected the wrestling business. It does not change the legend status that he deserved within that business, and it should not have affected him being in the Hall of Fame in the first place. Especially considering old Vinnie Mac himself, Vince McMahon, has said a lot worse.
That's true.
So
I think it's a matter of it just makes Terry Bollea more of a scumbag than he already is.
Right.
But it shouldn't affect Hulk Hogan, the wrestling character, and what he established for wrestling in that era.
Right.
It's just a matter of the separations of that. It's like, John Cena is this big, great hero to everybody, but he's been through at least a divorce or two, and, was probably also a bit of a scumbag to an extent.
Right.
But it's like, that doesn't affect John Cena, the wrestling character.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. I'm not going to say the name again just because I want to avoid that. But there's, there's another wrestler that kind of falls into that same category.
Yeah.
Of, I think that Vince is so worried that there's going to be negativity put on the WWE now that, like, the littlest thing makes him jump and just, automatically like, oh, I've got to erase this history because of the fact that, but here's the thing. Maybe if he stopped focusing on that and actually started focusing on making his show halfway decent, he might actually make some more money.
He may, but can I present, a counterpoint to that point also?
Okay.
Is that, can you blame him for being so jumpy in this age where you can just rouse up a social media riot in like 5 seconds? Downpour outrage on your company.
Well, I definitely understand. You want to make sure that your company has good PR, but at the same time, it's just one of those things where he's not erasing his own comments. He's not erasing himself from the history of the company, and
True.
It's always like somebody else. There was a particular female wrestler that had some very lewd things that came out. That for a while it was like she didn't exist, even though she was under contract still with the WWE. With the thing with Terry or Hulk Hogan, it's like all these things. It's just like he just, instead of facing it and saying, hey, look, our wrestlers are people. They're not always the best people. Some of them are straight up scumbags. Yeah. Hey, Scott Steiner has worked for the WWE, and he nearly killed a guy in the area that we live in.
Ultimate Warrior, in that same vein, has said plenty of nasty things about the gay community or whatever, but he was very
Right.
homophobic in his life, and they still have the Ultimate Warrior award or whatever.
Right. And it's okay to acknowledge that your employees are scumbags and still let them get or reap the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the admiration for the work that they put in into the business that they operate in.
I tell you what. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I work in a capacity where, I supervise people. And there are people that I look at and go, man, these people, these are great workers. These are the kind of people I want working for me. But, man, that dude's a douchebag.
Yeah.
Like, you could separate the two. And I feel like Vince should have done that instead of stripping the Hall of Fame from Hulk Hogan.
I think ultimately, in terms of to really kind of put into words my actual opinion on this, just straight down to the point, is you go, instead of looking up what Hulk Hogan said, go look up the statement that the New Day released on his reinstatement. Because
Right.
it's pretty much exactly, I side with them on this 100%. They're indifferent to it. They don't feel happy, angry, sad, or anything like that about his reinstatement. And it's basically boiled down to, we don't have to like him personally, but we can still respect him professionally.
Right.
And it's like, sure, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. It's been a known fact for Hulk Hogan since WCW that he's just a turd.
Yeah.
He basically booked himself into millions of dollars back then. For those that don't know the story behind like the whole NWO thing, Hulk Hogan was not supposed to be the leader of the NWO. He was actually offered it, and he turned it down. And then WCW booked Sting to be the third man for the NWO, but the NWO started making money.
Yeah.
And so then Hulk Hogan saw the opportunity and took it out from under Steve Borden, and because he had creative control, and basically booked himself into millions of dollars, and basically ran the company out of business because of that, because he wasn't willing to give up that position whenever the NWO started, not being so fresh anymore.
That's
And
true.
so, the dude's crummy. He cheated on his wife, got caught. Stuff was released about that.
I mean,
And,
the whole half of this second half of this show could probably be like the laundry list of scumbag things that Hogan has done.
right.
Just I don't even know the words anymore, but yeah, just a dramatic reading. There we go.
Right. But isn't that like, we're a pop culture podcast, so this seems like an appropriate
pretend to be.
topic for us. Is like, but do we put expectations on our on our stars, or on our people that we, God, my English language is not languaging today.
Don't worry, mine either. So
On these stars, like, we put all of this pressure to be like perfect. They can't do anything wrong. If they get caught doing anything wrong, it's like we all of a sudden think that, oh, how dare they? But I mean, in all reality, like, people all over the place in everyday life are doing some of the same things that these stars are doing, and they're not getting nearly bashed as much as the stars do.
yeah,
It's
well,
like
it's because nobody knows him.
yeah, well, exactly. But I mean, like, let's take. I want to go into. I'm not gonna. I can't. It's like, woo, skirting around some topics today, man. We're skirting around the big ones. But you take Jennifer Lawrence, for example.
Okay.
For the most part, like, what blockbuster movie has she been in the last few years since the big thing that happened to her happened? She hasn't been, but she was everywhere before that happened, right? And so it's like, because of the fact that her image has been damaged, like, all of a sudden she's not, a viable star. Like, let's be honest. Like, my opinion is that Jennifer Lawrence was like the female Brad Pitt. She was extremely, extremely talented, and she had, a extreme level of attractiveness on top of that talent, which is like Brad Pitt.
Very marketable.
And so, but because her image was, tainted, she's no longer marketable for some reason. And that kind of stuff upsets me because at the same time, again, I'm going to skirt around the issue, but at the same time, Harvey Weinstein has been, freaking doing his thing for the last 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah. Skirt away.
So, but you get what I'm saying.
That's the alarm that goes off when a woman walks near Harvey Weinstein.
Well, he needs that following him. Let's be honest.
No, what he needs is a shot collar and to be locked away in a room. But that's it. We're done with him. So
because that could very easily devolve into politics and not just pop culture.
And that is the rule. It's banned. So.
Right. But seriously, do we put expectations on our pop culture stars that shouldn't be there?
That shouldn't be there?
That shouldn't be there.
Yeah, of course we do.
It shouldn't. We shouldn't. Really, yes, what Hogan said was too much, and he should have been punished in some way for that. But the thing with cheating on his wife is okay, he's a douchebag, he's scummy. But I mean, even then, WWE distanced from him whenever that happened.
I think a lot of the outcry in part of his reinstatement, or at least a good portion of it, has to do with the way in which he apologized to the locker room at Extreme Rules.
Right.
Because you have some transcripts that come out of what was said in the meeting, and the main thing that is rubbing people the wrong way is that his apology doesn't sound like he was apologizing for what he said, but more the fact that he was caught saying it. Because I think the main thing he said was... Yeah. It was you have to watch out because you never know when you're being recorded, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. It is the worst, a fake apology ever, and it's just where you don't... It's begging to not be trusted.
Right.
So it's how can you possibly come off genuine when you're basically apologizing for saying, I'm sorry I got caught. I should have been better at that.
Yeah. That's just... Yeah, my final say on it is just Hulk Hogan's, it's a known fact that Hulk Hogan is a terrible dude.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be surprised. And if something else comes up in the next 2 or 3 years, I'm going to look at it and go, okay, it's Hulk Hogan. He says stuff like that.
Because Vince has already this planned at some major pay-per-view. Roman's going to pin him, and then Hogan will raise Roman's hand.
Oh, God, please no.
You know it's coming.
I'm just like Jimmy. If you haven't seen the interview that we did with Jimmy Blaylock a few weeks ago, I definitely recommend going back and watching that, especially considering his response to talking about the WWE, because he's just like, I don't watch it, I hate it, it's terrible, it's ruining wrestling, and I'm like,
okay, tell us how you really
feel. He said it, not me, but I agree.
But you agree. Yeah, most of it's not great. Nearly all of it's not great.
Right. No, it's, what are you going to do? Wrestling is in a bad spot. You have so many good superstars that are just being used terribly. You've got some of the best in the world. Finn Balor has disappeared into obscurity.
I mean, you want to talk about mistreatment? You can go into the tragic tale of Neville at the moment.
Oh, God.
One of the best in the world who can't do what he does because his contract's frozen.
Yeah. I mean, I think WWE is just so... they're so disconnected from what the fans want out of wrestling, because wrestling evolved. Wrestling evolved in the 2000s because of the fact that WWE did have the sole control basically over, the entire industry. And then Ring of Honor and TNA and all these other companies came along and kind of started the revolution of the small guys, and WWE just stayed oh yeah, we want the big buffy, beefy guys, and we're gonna push them down your throat. But now you have all of these world class 190-pound wrestlers that WWE's getting their hands on, that have traveled the world, proven that they're the best in the world, and now they're making them into jobbers and mid-carders.
At least on the main roster.
Thank you, Austin Aries, for getting out when you did, because I could not have stand to watch that happen to you.
He couldn't have picked a better time, really.
Right. Well, I think when you take somebody like Austin Aries that has had some of the best matches of the last decade in wrestling, period, and you relegate them to your web show about cruiserweight instead of putting him in your main title scene. Oh, because of the fact that you've got a big 290-pound part-timer as your champion who only shows up once every 2 months. So there's really not enough room to put them in the main stage anyways. But you put him into this web show cruiserweight scene that is an afterthought. Like, yeah, Austin Aries had every right to walk away.
Yeah, and now fast forward to current day, you've got a guy like Ricochet in NXT, and I bet he messages Triple H every day. So I'm staying in NXT, right?
Yeah.
I'm staying here, right? I'm not going anywhere.
Well, you remember you remember the original United Kingdom champion?
Yes.
Do you know why they made him drop that belt?
No.
Because of the fact, they have a NXT UK.
Yes, they do. That belt's really good looking.
Right. And so the reason why he actually ended up dropping the belt is because they offered him. Vince came to him and said, "I'm pulling you up to the main roster," and he said no. And so basically, Vince just buried him.
Well, I think he dropped it to Pete Dunne, and then Dunne's had it forever, and then I think it was Tyler Bate, wasn't it?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, I think he's now in a tag team right now.
Yeah.
In NXT.
So basically doing nothing.
At least he's in NXT.
Right. But yeah, it's the state of wrestling. We should really do like.
It's not going to get any better though, because WWE had that big deal with Fox go through. Yeah. So they're going to get way more money for doing less.
Yeah, but the thing is like that's not that's not really what they want. They really want to make their money through the network. And Vince has stated that, and the network is just failing. I don't know if you remember, but when the network first released, Vince lost half the value of the company overnight.
I think I do remember that. Yeah.
It was something like $500 million the dude lost overnight.
Right down the toilet.
Because of the fact that he's tried to force his own little Netflix thing, and it just doesn't work. I mean,
the only thing it does work at is kind of a nostalgia machine, because you can look up just about every match, except for those with the guy we can't name, within it. But you only want a nostalgia machine for so long.
Well,
the network doesn't have staying power for people.
Well, and the thing is they don't have their entire library up at the same time. They try to make it. It has a cyclic nature, and I'm like,
that is so stupid.
Yeah, if you really want to pull people to this, we have every episode of Raw available on this platform. We have every episode of WCW Monday Nitro, every episode that aired on TV of ECW, every pay-per-view from every bit that we own. Because they own the library, going back into some of the NWA days. They don't own the entire NWA library, but most of it. They own all the way back to the WWF. They own WCW, ECW. You have a huge video library, and you might actually do a little bit better if you just had it all out there.
Yeah, I don't see the argument for cyclical or rotation of shows being such a good idea for this platform at all. Because you can't compare the network to Netflix. It's just not the thing.
Well, because Netflix, you can actually go and watch whatever genre of anything you want. And so it's with a wrestling network, it's literally you just have wrestling.
You want the one genre, that's it.
Right. But the thing is there are tons of flavors of wrestling.
There are.
And so you need to give us every flavor. Don't try to oh, well, we're just going to, we'll have a little bit of this and a little bit, give it all, because I'm a WCW guy. I was back in the day. Now I can look back and recognize how terrible it was. At the time, I was a little kid, and I just loved Sting. So, it was what it was.
Well, there you go.
But, it's I went in to go watch WCW, and all the WCW they had was the crappy 2000s, that last year. And I'm like, where's the classic stuff?
Yeah.
Where's the fun stuff from 97 to 99 with the NWO and Sting and their battle? It wasn't there, and that was a turnoff for me. That's the reason why my free month never turned into a paid month.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is if they had everything, then people would be more willing to pay. Because they don't, then people are like, well, I'll just go torrent it.
Yeah.
Because that won't cost me anything.
Exactly.
And then I'll never need to drop $9.99 a month.
But Yeah, the network is a failure in my opinion.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Just don't like it. Don't care for it. Wrestling right now is a failure. Don't like it. Don't care for it. Hulk Hogan's a failure.
Yeah,
don't like him. Don't care for him.
He's a paradoxical successful failure.
Well, he's been a failure for the last 20 years.
It's true.
But no, seriously, it just wrestling just has a lot of issues right now. If you want good wrestling, for those that are into wrestling, or maybe you're not into wrestling and you've just gone like, man, how do you get into something like that? Like, I would recommend something like Ring of Honor right now. It's really easy to digest. And then if you really want to see some fun stuff and you're not a wrestling fan, because I know we got plenty of those that listen to the podcast, go to a local show, because local shows are like, they're where it's at. You don't have to be a wrestling fan to enjoy a local show.
That's true.
I will tell you, just from the TupeloCon stuff, when like chairs started getting thrown, it's like it don't matter if you're a wrestling fan or not. Like, everybody's like, "Oh, this is awesome,"
Yeah,
So,
that's the thing.
Yeah, Ben, you were at TupeloCon. Did you see the aftermath of our wrestling matches?
I didn't see the aftermath of the actual matches. I saw the aftermath of the attack on the one guy at the front, like kind of at the main stage.
Yeah, the one where I got crushed by him.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, like if you went back, okay, so for our listening audience, I'm going to verbally describe how all this was set up. We're gonna make it like really descriptive here. So
paint me a picture.
I'm gonna paint you a picture with tiny happy little trees. But no, seriously.
I remember those at the con.
Well, they were tiny. We had this ring set up, and around the ring we had about 500 fold-up chairs, and they were in 4 sections, one for each side of the ring. And there was a guy, Josh Turner, who played a savior in The Walking Dead, who was a guest at the convention, who's also a wrestler, and he came and he wrestled regional legend Dustin Starr. Dude is like really big in the Southeast, and it was a really, really hyped match. Like, there were people that traveled a long way to come see this match in particular, and so all of a sudden, like halfway through the match, like the match became no longer a wrestling match. It became like a street brawl. Because they get out of the ring, there's no barricade like you see on TV. Okay, there's just like there's 5 feet between front row and the ring, and all of a sudden, like 1/4 of the seats became the wrestling ring. And by the time that it was over, I think there were like 20 or something chairs that ended up getting broken. Like, we were sitting back here, like I was talking to Jamie afterwards. And like they were worried they were going to have to pay for some chairs because of the fact that chairs got broken. Like, I'm talking, they were hitting. There was, Dustin Starr's girlfriend's high heels were getting poked into people. There were like audience members who were like accidentally getting hit by the chairs. I mean,
I hope they signed a waiver.
It was just like, and it was like a real life fight, because like everybody had their phones out, like their smartphones out. We gotta get this because this is insane.
Yeah. World star.
Oh, it was a absolutely just like it's wonderful. Like, it's just fun, because neither of these guys are really getting hurt. And that's the fun part about it. And local wrestling shows are really where you get to experience stuff like that, because like, you imagine that happening in WWE, okay?
It would be sanitized faster than anything.
Exactly. And what's going to happen, because they do battle out in the fans occasionally, but you have like 10 security guards keeping the fans back.
Yeah, I was about to say.
It's a lot less interactive, because you are dealing with some high-level stars that they have to protect. So.
Yeah, you're not going to see any high heels poked into anybody anytime soon on TV.
No, not at all.
I'm amazed that you didn't have to pay for the chairs.
Yeah, I never really figured out what the outcome to that actually was.
Maybe I don't want to know the outcome of that.
And again, if you haven't listened to the interview with Jimmy Blaylock, he was actually the mastermind behind it. So,
was he?
Oh, yes, he was. Which from what
I know, I heard he called me out in the interview.
he did call you out at the interview, man. Like we're gonna have to get you two together at some point.
Yeah, we gotta settle these things here. I won't abide by this call out. No, sir.
Right. Well, man. Actually, our time is starting to get out from under us, man.
Oh, really? Again? This always happens.
It does.
Every time.
Just well, what are you gonna do, right?
Forget about it, and then be surprised next week when the time gets away from us.
Right. It's one of those things. We want to make sure that we keep our podcast, at a easy to digest length.
We like to waste as minimal time for our listeners as possible.
Exactly.
While still masquerading as a legitimate show.
So, guys, I know we talked a lot about wrestling this week. Maybe that's not your jam. That's okay. If it's not your jam, guess what? We're going to be talking about something else next week. We're going to...
Think of it this way. You thought you were committing an hour to the episode, and now you have an hour free.
Exactly. There you go.
Look at that.
But, guys, definitely you want to keep your eyes out. Who knows what we're going to discuss, man? We've discussed some wide range of topics in the past. Video games, movies, television shows. And next week we do have something special. We're gonna be talking to a local blogger who is trying to do some stuff for our city that me and Ben live in. But she's also really big into books. So we're gonna be talking a little bit about literature.
Classy all of a sudden.
Exactly. So you don't want to miss that next week.
Unless we're talking smut like 50 Shades, then we're not classy at all.
I don't know if that's going to be what she's going to be into. So hopefully we get to avoid that. But yeah, we're.
And also tune in because you never know when Ronnie's going to splurge and get the spinny wheel of topics, and it'll be behind him, and he'll spin it, and that's what will determine what we'll talk about.
That would actually be a really good idea, just to have like a wild card night.
Yeah.
We may actually try something like that. Let me look into that. Look into that. But guys,
stop by your local Lowe's.
We definitely appreciate you being here. We do this for you guys, especially as our community continues to grow. I do want to kind of give ourselves a pat on the back. And when I say ourselves, I'm not talking about me and Ben. I'm talking about us and you as the audience, as a community. We have more downloads already this month of the podcast than we did last month.
It's kind
for
of
the entire month. Actually, we're double. Excuse me. We had more downloads this week than we had all of last month.
Yeah, that's really alarming.
So you guys are the reason for that. It's not us. We are the vehicle for your discussion. So again, what we need you to do is we need you to, in 140 characters or less, 140 characters or less,
please,
tell us your opinion. If you disagree with us, if you think that Hulk Hogan should stay banned from the Hall of Fame forever, let me know and tell me why, because we will feature your opinion on the podcast as long as it's 140 characters or less.
I mean, that would be nice.
And because we want to know, we want you to argue against us. I have strong opinions. Ben has strong opinions, and
sometimes
not everybody agrees with them. So we want to know your opinions on it. So get out there. Comment on Facebook, email us, whatever way you wanna send it to us. On top of that, like, share, and comment on the video. That's how we continue to grow. That's how we continue to get new people, because your friends will start coming in and listening. We'll start having fun with them. And then on top of that, man, I'm just like asking you guys to do a ton.
We're not responsible for you losing any friends, though.
Yeah, we're not responsible for that. But then also, if you haven't, get on iTunes. If you listen on iTunes, and rate us. We're not going to be like most podcasts and say, "Oh, give us 5 stars." No, it's up to you. If you think we're crap, give us a 1-star review. We don't care. It's not going to hurt our feelings.
We appreciate honesty.
We do. Yeah, we appreciate your honesty more than we're going to say, "Hey, we want to." Because if we're 1 star, we want to do what we got to do to improve.
We don't want this crap of like, we can be honest, but you better not be. You better lie to our face.
Exactly. We're disgruntled, and we expect the people who listen to us to be disgruntled with us.
I would hope so.
But for those that don't know, we also have a Patreon. If you do want to join the Disgruntled Geeks podcast team, feel free to go over there. You are not obligated. It will be the worst $1 that you will ever spend.
It's the worst $1, but it's the best toilet you can flush it in.
Exactly. We are the best toilet you can flush your dollar down. But that is, all you got to do is go over to Patreon, look up the Disgruntled Geeks. We have $1 an episode as our lowest tier. And that's like, or not $1 episode, $1 a month, excuse me. That's more like 25 cents an episode. Yeah. That's more like 25 cents an episode.
You didn't tell me we were in money-making scam mode. Sorry about that.
But that goes just to help us update equipment, help us keep the hosting up, those kind of things. So if you're interested in joining the team, feel free to go over to Patreon, but don't feel obligated to do it.
Nah, please don't.
So, but that's it for this week. Ben, you got anything else you want to add?
I'm going to try to not have everything die Saturday, but everything will.
Okay. Oh, we're going to want to hear about it next week now.
Oh, yeah. I'll let you know.
So, okay, guys. Well, that is it for the Disgruntled Geeks podcast. So, guys, remember, stay disgruntled and keep your eyes out for everything the Disgruntled Geeks, the most honest, critical, and sometimes cynical podcast you will ever hear.
Bye-bye.